Eastham Water Management Committee, and I am opening our meeting in the Earl Mountain Room. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Okay. And the first item on our agenda is a review of the August minutes, which you will have gotten late, and I apologize, that is my
Well,
error.
you did get an earlier one.
No,
Shortly
no.
after the meeting. Oh, no, pardon me, early in September.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
week before the
okay.
meeting, but
Right,
that has
yeah.
been revised.
What happened was Jeff had sent it to me, and I responded to him, but unfortunately, Outlook, in its infinite wisdom, picked up his old email address and sent
Well,
it
it's
to that
hard to
address.
get the old ones out of your contacts list. I've tried it.
Yeah,
It's
what you
very
have to
difficult.
do, slight diversion, is you bring up like you're gonna do an email, put in the person's name, and they will bring up the list, and you just highlight and delete, and that's how you get them
If your
out.
memory is still active, you.
But
you
that's
choose
the way it
right
goes. So, what we have is the August minutes, which are up on the screen.
I had one correction, which I sent to you. It's
Oh,
Mills.
I didn't
Okay.
understand what you were
Oh,
doing.
I crossed out Mills Pond. It's not Mills Pond, it's Malls Pond. Molls.
I know that.
So I
didn't,
crossed-
I'm sorry about that.
So I thought it would be easier if I just crossed it out and put the correct one.
Okay.
That's what I tried
See,
to
when
do.
she looked over my minutes, she did them in red, so
Oh, I put my correction in red, too.
it must be just the O instead of the I, so.
Okay, so,
I read it online. I have no corrections, but I do have a question. I understand the open meeting law that we have to include the documents that are discussed. My question is this: do we just have to list them, or do we have to give a link or tell people where to find them?
we only have to list them so far as the minutes are concerned. There is a bigger question, which is that the documents are supposed to be retained so that they can be accessed. And considering the length of a number of the documents that we use in a meeting, it seems to me unwieldy to try to print all these things out. So I have it on my list of to-dos to talk with the town clerk and see if perhaps we could work something out with electronic copies, which would make a lot more sense. But for now, for purposes of minute taking, all we need to do is list the documents with sufficient specificity to reasonably identify them, so that somebody looking at that notation would know what document they're looking for.
But if the documents are, for example, already available on Jane's website, as so many of them seem to be, doesn't that meet the retention rule?
It probably does, but I have to, I'm not in charge of the retention rule, so I have to discuss all this with the town clerk. But whether they're available, whether they're public, whatever, they have to be listed and identified at the end of the meetings. And this new version of the Attorney General's Guide makes that same requirement, that they have to be.
On that point, I didn't have the dates to identify the documents that were handed out, so if you scroll down, Adele, you'll see that I didn't identify your letter to the abutters by date.
You mean Jane's letter?
Jane's letter.
Okay.
Yeah, I pointed at her, but
Okay. I think Jane distributed copies, because I have a copy in the back here. So, I mean, it's important, obviously, for any of us to keep copies if we want to keep up to date. But if you're taking minutes, it's even more important that you be careful to keep a copy of the documents to the extent you can. Obviously, if it's a big map or something, you can't do that. And then you want to make notations about the map during the meeting, so you know. But it's August 15th was Jane's letter.
That was the date of the letter to the
Yeah, that
two
was the
abutters?
date of the letter, August 15th, the letter to
Also the
Rice.
date of our meeting,
That may be, but Jane worked hard in the morning.
okay?
That is the date on the letter. I'm foggy enough still that I might not be reading things too clearly, but I do see August 15th. Okay, since I haven't seen this before, I'm going to take a minute to run through it. It has been, and I'm not going to suggest these minutes be changed, but I was talking about some of the questions you raised about minutes, Jeff, with someone who's had more experience in a more formal environment. And it was suggested that when amendments are made to the minutes that are of any significance, obviously not typos, that it's a good idea to note what the amendments are. So, but
Oh,
we
sure.
didn't do that, so in the
Right.
future, I guess,
Well, I've
for
made
anybody
notes
who's
to that
taking
effect here,
minutes, yeah. Okay. Okay. No, that last paragraph is not what I asked, and I think in my comments to you, I pointed that
You
out.
did ask me, and I did delete that, that you had requested changes, but I did leave in the part about being proactive.
Yeah, but it wasn't part,
Are we on the same
there were
paragraph?
two sort of, they came up in the same discussion, but they were two separate thoughts. Did I suggest language? I don't remember
Yes,
what
you
I
did, that I tend to add too much information in a sentence.
Okay, well then, so, do you, I'd have to go back and find it. Do you have,
Well,
What I
here's what I said originally. Long asked the committee to think about charge to the Water Management Committee last revised in 2008, and if members feel a need to recommend changes and to consider proactive investigative efforts. And then I modified that just to include investigative efforts, because in your notes to me, you didn't feel that you were asking.
can I have what my notes were? Otherwise, I'm going to have to dig them up, thanks. Okay. Okay, what, I guess I suggested, and you probably didn't have time, since you didn't get this until today, that you go back and look at the
Right, I did
video
not.
on
I didn't
demand.
have time.
Basically, and I don't have words for this right now, but I'll tell you what my memory is of that discussion, and then maybe we can figure out words for it. I brought up the committee charge, and which I'd asked people to read before, and had a discussion or some thoughts on what I thought the committee charge meant and what was our role as an advisory committee. And I thought it was important for people to understand that, because some of the questions that come up from time to time, it suggested that some people thought that we had a role that went beyond giving advice to the selectmen, that sort of thing. I then also noted, I guess there were those 4 or 5 things at the end, and said that perhaps these were areas in which we could take some proactive steps with projects. I don't think I used the word investigative, maybe that's how you understood it. So I don't know if we can quickly come up with language that,
Well, what I took away from that discussion as the newbie is that there were 2 different sets of activities. One is the things that we were charged to do in the committee charge by the Board of Selectmen. And then I remember the specific discussion, and we could take on additional projects on our own initiative if we chose to do so.
But the additional projects had to be within the scope of the charge.
Okay.
It wasn't just, let's decide to, I don't know, count herring? That is a very useful thing to do, but I don't really
But
think
not
it's
for the
totally
Water
within,
Management
yeah, I
Committee.
don't think it's really within our charge. So, okay, do we have anybody, I have to
I
admit,
thought
I'm,
that was an important distinction,
Yeah.
so I thought it was
Yeah.
memorable.
but it was all, keeping everything within our charge, that they were, just as we had a project that we had was the completion of the pond protection plan. That was a project that we had within the scope of the committee's charge, but it wasn't that the charge said do a pond protection plan. It was just understanding that if you wanted to take action on behalf of the ponds, what would be a good thing to do. And in that particular case also, we were specifically asked to do it by the Board of Selectmen. But I guess our problem right now is to come up with some language for that last paragraph.
Well, you know what your intent was, Adele. Why don't you put that into words?
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do.
I thought that was a pretty important, actually, consideration, though.
Well, especially for someone who's still trying to find her way around. That
Right.
was very useful.
And I guess I've been unclear all these months as to where the charges come from. Is it only the selectmen?
Yes. I mean, we can make suggestions to the selectmen, but the charge does come from the selection.
Right.
From the
I mean,
selectmen.
we're thinking of our committee more than they are.
That's true.
You've got a lot of things on their agenda.
certain I didn't say anything during the meeting as gracefully as this, but I think this is the substance of what I said. Blong discussed the committee charge, noting that the committee was an advisory committee with a responsibility to provide advice. I'll give this to you when I'm
Yeah,
done.
I was
To
gonna say, I
provide,
can't write that
you may
fast.
not be able to read it, though, but we can go over it. To provide advice on issues or development of plans for work on matters covered by the committee charge. She noted some of the committee's past work of this nature. She also suggested that as time went on, we would be looking at possible projects committee members might undertake to carry out the committee charge. Okay, so that takes care of. Okay, this paragraph about the website should be a separate paragraph, since it really wasn't part of that discussion, and it could get confusing. Okay.
And you'll get the wording to me, Adele?
Yeah, I'll give you this piece of paper, and if you can't read it, we'll go over it at the end of the meeting, okay?
I'm good at reading my own writing. I can read yours.
Lots of luck. Okay. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second?
Vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's all of us.
5.
And, okay, so that takes care of that. Okay,
A point of order, Adele, these minutes, now that they're approved by us, then I put them in final form and get them to the clerk? Is that where they go?
Yep.
It's my responsibility to do that each time I take minutes?
right. You have to sign them, obviously, and you use that clerk of the day.
Yes.
And then, yeah, you just take them in and
Sure.
hand them in to somebody who's ever there. And that takes care of it. Okay, Charles, you're up. Report on Water Management Committee participation in Windmill Weekend.
Well, I had a table set out with a large number of documents, and also had the sampling equipment that we use when we go out and collect water samples, because I'm a sampler, and I had that, and I thought it would be one more thing that we could show the public. So I had a Niskin sampler, and I had a Seiki disc, and I had the dissolved oxygen meter, and a couple people referred to it, but not a lot. I did send out to everyone a list of the documents that I had there, and it represents my involvement over the years with the committee, so I kind of, at one time or another, was fairly familiar with each one of these documents, and thought if somebody came up and asked me a question on it, I could tell them and also pick up a document and refer to it. So it's a good list to pick from in the future years. Let's see, I had hoped that I would find a couple folks that seemed like they might be good candidates for joining the committee. And although I talked to a lot of people, I can't say that I had any firm discussion that could lead to something. So that's okay. We can just keep engaging the public. I can comment that the person running the management of the Windmill Weekend has upgraded the procedure for arranging for a site. That was done on the internet, which is the first time this year. And I was happy to see that they granted a space at the town hall end of the large windmill lawn there. For one thing, it's furthest from the a band that's playing, but also it's, over the last couple of years, it's been fairly close to the entry and exit point, so I can kind of engage a fair number of people as they walk by, and another thing I have to do in that manner, I do have the 3-foot by 4-foot paper groundwater map of the Eastham. And maps attract the attention of people who are, I guess, visual learners. And so it's a good thing to have discussions over. Let's see, Mary Lou did spell me on Sunday at noontime, so.
Well, I was there for 2 hours. You were there for 2 days.
Which was very nice, thank you. Let's see, we had 2 AmeriCorps folks come by and asked if in some way they could be involved in anything that the committee does. And so we do have their name.
Yeah,
Can
in
you
fact, they were the ones who were attracted by the sampling equipment. They seemed to know what it was, which in the first place impressed me. And I asked them if they were interested in learning to sample, and they said yes, they'd be very interested.
What-
These people are only here for, I think, 1 year usually,
Yeah, yeah.
but somebody follows them. It seems to me it would be really nice to have an ongoing relationship with AmeriCorps for some of these things.
Yes, Charles, maybe you could send me and Jane the contact information for these people,
Okay.
that we could follow up. Do you know
It sounds to
what?
me like there's a group of them that live in Eastham. They mostly work out of the office on the county campus, I think.
Okay.
But they were
Well,
living
but just
here.
so we know how to get in contact with
Yeah.
them, Jane may want to follow up with them about
Had
sampling and that sort
many
of.
interns over the length of the program, starting more than 10 years ago. So we've done a variety of different programs. The way it works to get a member for an entire year for a lengthy project is you apply, the projects are selected, and then there's a placement, and then the mentor has some responsibilities in terms of feedback and, just educating and sort of bringing the project to a completion point. So those are individual placements, and then they also have group placements where the entire house will assist, say, a conservation clearing project or some type of restoration project. So you can apply for 2 different types of programs. And the problem with the sampling, however, with AmeriCorps is they're not here in the summer.
Oh.
And we do our sampling at least, most of it is in the summer months, so that, they kind of miss that window. They start up usually October, I think, maybe. I can't quite remember when they come and go, but they graduate in like June. And then
This
they
was
go
what,
back.
September something or other, and they had just like moved here, so they were
Okay,
just
so they
starting.
probably are just, and the houses that they live in, there's one in Wellfleet, group house, and the other one is in Bourne. So they have, they have a organized program, and they do great work. We've hired many AmeriCorps interns post their
They're really great.
their mentorship in that, and they're just great kids.
Didn't you, one of the studies, I have this vague memory that you mentioned some meetings ago. Maybe it was a different kind of intern, but some intern was going to do some work and something for you, but I can't pull it back, so. I don't-
My most recent educational relationship was with Boston University. I had an
Oh.
intern who was working on a graduate program, and I was advising.
Okay, that's probably what I'm remembering. Okay.
So I got a couple
Okay,
more points. I did have a real nice discussion with a person who lives in Eastham and part of a family who has a shellfish business, a person by the name of Catherine Edmonds and her son. And I told them about the possibility of doing a shellfish pilot in Salt Pond. That's part of our water management plans for the Nauset Estuary. So that's that I do not know people in the community like that. With my background, so that was very nice, and it did seem like it was had some good possibilities. That person basically has shellfish growing apparatuses close to Hemingway down here on Nauset. So I did ask Tom Flannery, who is from the Department of Conservation and Recreation, for a resupply of a number of the pamphlets, because there are some real good pamphlets that the state has produced, and they move pretty quickly off the table. So I hopefully I will have a resupply for next year, ready to go, and I think that's it.
And I
Okay.
did meet one very nice couple, the husband of whom is a water hydrologist. So of course my eyes lighted up. But he made it clear he was several years from retirement. They live in Connecticut, summer
It's
home here.
part-time.
But I did at least encourage him to think about us when he did retire and move full-time to Eastham. You work with what you can find.
Right, right.
Sure.
There is a gentleman who has indicated through the search committee an interest in this committee, but he's also indicated an interest in 2 other committees. So I'm not certain what will come of that. I did respond to him and invited him to come to this meeting, which he was not able to do because he was going to be out of town, but he said he would watch the video. And I also pointed him to the discussion of our committee charge in the August meeting. I thought that was probably the best, quickest way to give him an overview, a sense of what it is the committee does. So we'll see what comes of that. Okay, the other thing on that list of documents, well, I think I sent them out to you as I did them. I had done 2 documents for Charles. One was an explanation of the various documents that he had on the table with a sort of a brief 1 paragraph about what the document was about. And I think that's something we probably can make use of in the future, as these were the documents that we keep turning to all the time in terms of people understanding what they were about. And I think, so much has happened since I did this, it's hard for me to remember. I think I did a one on some basic facts about the municipal water system. I did that, didn't I, Charles? It's not on your list, but does anyone remember what I sent to you? Yeah, I did, okay. What it is I went from that, the reason I wasn't at Windmill Week was Windmill Weekend, I wasn't able to do it as I planned to, because my son and daughter-in-law decided to have my grandson's first birthday party in New Hampshire the following Sunday morning. So we went up there and then did the various things we had to do, and then on the 17th, we left for the United Kingdom and got back from there late, well, I guess it's actually Thursday morning. I was going to say late Wednesday night, but it was actually Thursday morning by the time we finally got back, because we needed to do a connecting flight, so I'm a little hazy on some details, so I'll welcome whatever help I can get as I go through this. Okay, so the next thing is Jane's report.
We wrapped up the pond sampling for the fall, so we've done 2 rounds of sampling on freshwater systems, 11 ponds. We will get the results back from the School of Marine Science and Technology, not until like January or February. They really take a long time to get the results back to us, but we don't pay for the analysis, so I guess we have to be grateful for that. We do have the Provincetown Center for Coastal Study Spring Sampling Event. In terms of the MEP saltwater monitoring program, that too has concluded. And again, those samples go to School of SMAS, and as soon as they come back, I will share them with this group and also with the samplers. And we are still waiting for the vegetation survey done by Solitude on Schoolhouse Ministers Pond. They had told me that it would be back right about now, so I'm looking forward to getting that.
What is that
And
exactly, Jane?
We hired Solitude to come out and do a survey of the pond and water quality sampling. So they were looking at what types of vegetation were there to identify invasives, naturally occurring vegetation, or anything that might be problematic, to give us some ideas on what type of remediation might be possible. I know that they did identify something that they thought was protected, which is eluding me right now. I'm not quite sure what it was, but.
But
so-
it's probably flora rather than animal life.
Oh, it was, yeah, it was some vegetation.
Yeah.
So, totally outside of my area of expertise, so we will be waiting back for that report. And obviously, that would have impact on what we can and cannot do, and, you know, the whole issue. Is it a plant problem, an invasive plant problem, or is it, you know, some other type of problem? So that will be helpful. In terms of wastewater planning, we have a lot of sampling that was done of existing monitoring wells. All that data is back, and it seems like I'm waiting for a lot of stuff right about now. I'm waiting for the report, the draft report on my permeable reactive barrier watershed characterization report. So that is, the work's all been done, the samples have all been analyzed, so I'm just waiting for the report to be written, and then we'll review it. We did meet with Cape Cod National Seashore. I brought every hydrologist I knew. We had our landfill consultant, we had the Cape Cod Commission, we had our wastewater consultants, and we talked with the seashore about our shared interests in the Salt Pond watershed. And they brought to the table some recent test results on the septic system that operates at that site. We had met last December, and they promised to do a higher level of screening and also to add alkalinity to see if that would improve the nitrification of the system, with the end result we want to denitrify. So they agreed to do that, and indeed, the numbers did improve dramatically, but the numbers still are a significant load. So the numbers were in the 70s. They were reduced with the addition of alkalinity to the 40s in general. And so although that's an improvement, there's still, you know, a great deal of work that needs to be done to get this system operating as I think it can operate really efficiently. So I was very pleased that I got a call last week from the planner at the seashore asking for recommendations on who I thought might be able to make the first steps for retrofitting. And I've talked with the consultant, who is Horsley Witten, Scott Horsley, and he is just putting together a contract, planning to go, I gave him plans, we're planning to go out to the site probably the end of this month and look to see what can be done for the first phase of improvements. But the seashore has also expressed a commitment that if the first phase of improvement falls short of our real desired goal, that they were going to put in a capital improvement plan and include this project. So that was very significant. I was thrilled. And, you know, I'm really happy. I think we're really gonna see action. And George Heufelder also was involved with that team, meeting with the seashore. So we set a next meeting, which was another one of my goals, to keep this going forward, to keep regular meetings. And I promised to try to regroup our stormwater remediation effort. I am working with the Deputy Director at the Cape Cod Commission, Patty Daly. We had a long, productive conversation, and so we are working towards a meeting date to discuss that and get that back on the table, because I know we have political support from our representatives. So, you know, that's just something we really need to keep focused on. And I think that this report that is in the works right now and being written will lead us in a direction to guide the selectmen on next steps. So, you know, as soon as we get there, I'll let you know. So, and I have one other
Hey,
unrelated.
just ask you a question about the storm, you mentioned the storm, that's the runoff into Salt Pond, is it also?
Right.
Is it also Minister?
But we looked at both. We actually sampled both stormwater catch basins, and there is a nutrient load that goes into both water bodies, but to be honest, there wasn't enough running water at the schoolhouse minister's site.
Yeah.
At the time we took it, it wasn't a very good sample, so
So it
we
really,
really need to do that again.
okay, but if you get a better sample, it's possible that whatever this project is will cover both of them?
No, I don't think so.
It'll still be just Salt
Yeah.
Pond, okay.
Jane, any survey of the properties that go from the visitor center out toward Coast Guard along that? I mean, are they significant contributors to nitrogen?
Well, the watershed, you know, you remember the shape of the watershed that we're focused on. It's so towards Coast Guard Beach, I mean?
Yeah, that's-
So the watershed drains from, like, say, the landfill in a southeasterly direction in general. And so it starts up at the landfill and it goes southeast and drains out to Salt Pond. What we're trying to do with this PRB analysis is really get into the detailed level analysis of exactly at what elevation and at what velocity the ground, it's critical to correct placement of a barrier of some sort, to know exactly where and exactly what chemicals we're dealing with, what form the nitrogen is in. So those are all things that are being evaluated through, and we will have to put in more monitoring wells, but it's, you know, until I have the report in my hand.
But you're focusing primarily on the effluent from the visitor center as well as from the landfill?
Well, it's a significant load, and it's right up at the top of the hill, and there's very little chance for any conversion between where it's disposed and, you know, where it enters the water table,
Yeah.
which is Salt Pond.
There's a map of the watershed up, because it was in this, what is it in?
Memo
Tech-
3.
Tech memo.
Tech Memo 3.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that you see what Jane was saying about the shape of it. That's it. It's the same on both, but the other one shows different things because of, for a different purpose. So what area, was what you were talking about within that area?
Well, you know, going from the visitor center out to Coast Guard, there are quite a few properties along there. Isn't that correct?
Well.
Yeah, but that's,
Yeah, that would discharge out to the Atlantic Ocean, pretty much, you know, once you get,
Okay, because there's only a couple captured by that watershed plume
yeah.
shape.
So the others wouldn't be contributing
Okay.
because they're outside the watershed.
I see what you're saying.
There are,
Okay?
Just completely unrelated, but for anybody that's interested, we are having a flu clinic, which is going to be, there's online registration October 19th.
You noticed me coughing.
There you go.
I've had it. At my husband's insistence, I get them very early in the year. I'm not good at that stuff, but. Jane, there's a couple of other things I noticed, both in something you sent out and then finally going through my mail to figure out things. You want to talk a little bit about the $10 million grant and its possible relevance to this Depot Pond project?
Yeah, that was actually a project that was put together many years ago. So this has been on the shelf for a while. And lo and behold, it looks like some funding has come our way. There's a long list of projects that's included, though, in this $10 million award, and so we don't know which ones will be selected. But basically, it would be working to open up the connection from Great Pond up to Depot Pond. Its sediments and whatnot have basically shut off that fish run, so it would be focused on those improvements. So it's a stormwater remediation project, but it would also improve allow that historic herring run to be revitalized. So,
You're talking
Stay
about
tuned.
between Great Pond and Depot Pond, or are you talking about under the railroad bed, between the two halves of?
yeah, between Great Pond through, I think it's Deborah's
That
Pond.
Yeah,
little thing
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that little thing up to Depot.
Yeah.
So by improving the culverts and,
At Great Pond and the railroad line,
yeah.
that's what the letter says.
yeah, and improving, so that's had a negative impact, so that's the project that's applicable in East Hampton.
Yeah. Jane, is this really the same type of funding that the town got to improve the culvert under Herringbrook back about 5, 6 years ago?
This is a USDA water resource restoration project. So I'm not sure where that funding came from. I wasn't involved in that.
Sure. Yeah, in the culvert under Herringbrook that was repaired, I'm pretty sure.
It might be.
I'm
You
pretty
might be
sure.
right.
I'm pretty sure that the money came down to the town, and then our DPW engaged a contractor to design it, and then we got approval for the design, and then we got the money to hire the contractor to put it in.
I think you're right.
It may be, but this, do I remember correctly, this 10 million is going to APCC, and then they'll be, with the advice of others, making the selection?
Yeah, I think that it's gonna be a committee of,
Yeah.
the Cape Cod Commission, the APCC, and whoever the federal partner was.
USDA.
Yeah, USDA.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still unclear about where this exactly is. You're saying that there's a culvert that connects Great Pond to,
I think he means,
No, it's to improve the culvert at Great Pond Road and under the rail trail.
this is Depot?
Depot, yep,
Yes.
you're right.
Yeah.
And this is that little thing I didn't mark this?
Deborah,
Yeah.
Deborah,
And
yep.
so there must be one here and
Right.
one here.
Right.
two.
This is the bicycle trail.
Right.
Yeah, it goes under,
The Great Pond, the road. that-
yeah.
So really, there are two culverts that need work, is that correct?
That's
Yes,
what I
They
understand.
refer to them in the plural, to improve the culverts at Great Pond Road and the railroad line. So there are
Okay,
two.
yeah, that would be two, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can send the application out to everybody, it has all the details, so you can,
That's Deborah Pond, that little one
Yeah.
between Great and Depot?
yeah.
The
The,
name, gone past it many times.
yeah.
Okay?
I have been to the site, and I can tell you that a tree has grown such that it blocks, let's say, about the lower third of an 18-inch ceramic pipe, which is in fact the pipe under the rail trail. I also can say that I do have as a friend a woman in her upper 80s who has told me that when she was raising her kids on Depot Pond, herring were there in the pond, you know, easily seen for what they were. So we do have history there in terms of there being herring.
Okay, the next item is me. Tri-Town and other Orleans wastewater developments. If you've been reading the papers, a lot of this will not be news to you. But basically, Orleans is having a special town meeting this week. Am I right, it's this week? No, it's 6 days from now, so it must be next week, next Monday.
16, isn't
Yeah.
it?
October 16th. They have 4 articles on the special town meeting warrant that relate to wastewater. They had originally had the idea that the sewer pipes that they want to put down for the wastewater collection system in the downtown area could be laid by the Massachusetts Department of Transportation with that project that they're doing, which you'll all be glad to know, is not over. There will be more tearing up of those roads around Route 6 and Main Street intersection, 6A and the Main Street intersection. And so the warrant asks for funding to install the sewer pipes for the downtown sewer collection system as part of those ongoing Mass DOT repairs at an estimated cost of $3,680,000. After the warrant, everything had been put to bed, the town received notification from DOT that they could not do it because their attorney had told them that it would violate the state procurement rules since they were changing the contract and all the rest of it. So it's my understanding that the selectmen believe that they can still proceed with the current article, that it is not so specific that it includes a particular method of installing the pipes, so that they can proceed with this article. And then if they get the funding, and DOT is agreeable to this, DOT would postpone its work until after the town has secured a contractor and the contractor has installed the sewer pipes in the area that will then, DOT will have to tear up. And if this works, the town expects to have those sewer pipes installed sometime in 2019, all conditioned on getting the funding at this town meeting. They've also asked for authorization for the selectmen to negotiate with DOT about using, we've talked about this before, the Route 6 cloverleaf at exit 12, to use that as their primary effluent disposal site for the treatment plant which is to be built. There's some opposition to that because there will be some effluent going into Namscachet Marsh, which has been a hot-button issue from the beginning. Numerous scientists, including the name is escaping me, the Geo Survey, have done studies and found that there will be just a very small amount of effluent going into the marsh and that it will not cause any harm. That does not seem to have satisfied the opposition. There was a motion at the last OQAP, or the Orleans Water Quality Advisory Panel meeting, to block the use of that site because it would go into Namscachet Marsh. That motion was soundly defeated. So, but obviously these arguments will be brought up again at town meeting. And, but if they get approval, they will begin to deal with the state officials who have indicated some willingness, though what they're asking for, which is not surprising, is they want the town to demonstrate why they have a unique need to use the state land, because they don't want, obviously, every town coming to them and picking up the DOT land and saying, okay, this is where we're gonna do it for this. So Orleans is gonna have to show what is their unique situation. Yeah.
Which side of the Cloverleaf is that? I would,
Cloverleaf at exit 12.
yeah,
So
on one
what's
side
it?
is the Toyota dealer.
Yeah, well, then I guess it's not there. There is a lot, when you, I'm more, the only place, yeah, when I exit, you know, I'm coming north, obviously, it's the only way you would be exiting. And when you come off there, there is quite a bit of land before you get to that Skagit Motel. So I don't know if that's what they're talking about.
How'd you pronounce that name?
Namskakit.
Namskakit. Is that what Tri-Town used to feed into?
No.
Tri-Town is
Tri-Town was
back
a s-
there.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
back
That's what I
there,
thought,
but I
yeah.
don't think,
That's further down, it's a lot closer to the
yeah, but I've never heard that they actually, it was the original, the Namskakit Marsh thing came up the first time the town started talking about sewerage and a new treatment facility. A group was formed to sort of protect Namskakit Marsh, and so that's what's been going on since. And so,
Well, I
see
mean,
what happens.
Tri-Town was a lot closer to the outlet, I think.
Yeah,
What didn't, you know,
Yeah. yeah.
the Rotary would, not Rotary, the Cloverleaf would be upstream from there, as I,
Yeah, there is a part of the Tri-Town site, and I can't hold on to all these details at this point, but a part of the Tri-Town site was considered as a backup possibility, but for the effluent disposal. But that was ruled out for a variety of reasons, a variety of negatives about using that site. I don't remember what they are. I mean, I can't tell you offhand. And on aquaculture, they're also asking for funding to complete the aquaculture project at Lonnie's Pond. It would be the third year. The total cost for the third year would be $180,700. And they're asking for $94,000 because they already have $86,700 on hand, I guess saved from prior years. So, but that's an interesting figure, that the one-year project cost is going to be $180,000. And then finally, they're asking for funding for an independent review of 25% sewer design plans, and that would cost $75,000. And this comes out of some selectmen and some others have expressed doubts about the information that they're getting from their consultants and others, and have decided that they need an independent review. Orleans is very big on independent reviews. As you will remember, or you might remember when we discussed earlier the MEP reports and the attack on their validity, the validity of their method, and the Orleans group that kept pushing, which led to the convening of this panel of experts, et cetera, at some substantial cost. So now they're asking for independent review of 25% of the sewer design plans. What is interesting is what this doesn't cover, obviously, because they're still far from it, is the treatment plan. Where will it be? What will it cost? From what I can glean as I read through these various things, it looks like Tri-Town, the Tri-Town location is going to be it. That's where the treatment plant will go. Interestingly, in an early August meeting of the Orleans Board of Selectmen, the consultants brought to their attention that when their comprehensive water management plan was approved in 2011, one of the conditions in the water management plan was that if Tri-Town was to be, I can't think of the word, what has been done, decommissioned.
Converted.
Yeah, decommissioned, but then used again in the future for purposes of a treatment plant, that they had a responsibility to provide capacity for Brewster and Eastham, septage and sewerage, which of course is not the direction they're going in right now. So I don't know exactly what's going to come of that. At the August 21st Board of Selectmen meeting, the town administrator reported to the selectmen on the fact that this had come to light, the requirement that they provide capacity for Brewster and Eastham, and was authorized by the selectmen to contact the Orleans Town Administrator and the Brewster Town Administrator and follow up and see what was there and what could be done. I don't know anything more since then. So that's where it was left. Okay. And, you know, obviously, we don't have a current plan to sewer, but it would be nice to know that there's capacity there if at some point we are forced to sewer in the future. But in addition to that, it would certainly be more economic for us in Eastham if our septage only had to be hauled to Tri-Town rather than hauled to wherever it is going. I know some, for example, the person that used to do my septic clean-out has stopped doing it, specifically because of that, you know, it's too far to travel. It's not economic for him to do it. So luckily, he just turned me over to somebody else, a bigger company, so I have somebody doing it, and they'll take care of it. But the fees are going to be higher than they have been in the past.
Is Brewster as difficult a site to locate sewage treatment as Eastham would be and
Well, I think what
Orleans is
Brewster,
proving to be?
and again, I'm only going on memory, so I could be wrong, but my memory is that Brewster is actually thinking of doing something with Yarmouth. So, there, you know, once you get down in that direction, there are more possibilities because
Right.
there are more towns you're connected with. We're sort of stuck because obviously Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown has its sewers, but it'd be a long way to build a sewer line to Provincetown. So, I mean, Orleans is our obvious go-to place and probably about the only go-to place in terms of sewerage. So-
Adele, I could add a little there. Although we're going to be discussing Tech Memo 3 a little later today, in Tech Memo 4, it says that the engineers are suggesting that Eastham, if it did have a sewer collecting system, then they would send it to Orleans for treatment. From an engineering perspective, the residents that have the septic systems, it would be the first engineering recommendation to send that over to Orleans. That's, you know, what the document says. On the Tri-Town business, I sat in on the meetings as they were closing down the Tri-Town, and it did seem as though Yarmouth was able to step up and take the load that was then going into Tri-Town before it closed. And so I guess from that is that we aren't in a big pinch at the moment for a place to send the septage, because Yarmouth is able to take it, and they're set up to.
But it's more expensive, Charles. I mean, that's why my fees are going up. I
Well,
mean,
it's-
I've already
it's a-
been told
It's
that.
more transportation,
Yeah.
so it's,
They gotta,
But,
you
I
gotta
mean,
pay for
you're
each
right.
mile they truck it,
Sure.
yeah. So
But-
if we could go to
but Charles
Orleans, it would be
is
cheaper,
right
yeah.
regarding the capacity of the septic treatment facility in Yarmouth, and they're actually doing a lot of capital improvements too. So I talked to the operator, the DPW director there, and asked him about wait times and what, you know, logistically, if they experienced any problems. And he said, not really.
Yeah.
They handled the additional volume that would have been diverted to Tri-Town pretty readily, so.
Yeah, in sitting in on the Tri-Town meetings, I listened to the plant manager say that from the standpoint of running a treatment plant, it's nice to both doing pipe collected sewage and septic, because the flows coming in over a year's period of time can help balance each other out.
Yeah.
So-
Orleans will clearly be doing septic because they're doing their own. I mean, they've only got a small amount of the town that's going to be sewered, and they've been very clear that that plant will handle the septic from Orleans. And the question is, I mean, obviously, we don't have any problem with going there. We'd like to go there. The question is whether Orleans will receive us. That's the issue. So far, they have not indicated a willingness in that direction. So we'll see what develops out of all this. The other thing is just another interesting note about Lonnie's and their agriculture program. In terms of scale, last winter, they overwintered 220,000 that they bought from Falmouth. They bought 440,000 in the summer at a cost of 120,000, which brought their number to 500 after they took out 140,000. They don't explain why they took out the 140 to buy, effectively replace them, whether there was something. I don't think there was anything wrong from the way they said it. But anyway, so it's gives you some idea of what their numbers are in terms of, so they'll be overwintering 500. Problem is, when they took out the 140,000, and I guess they knew this all along but hadn't sort of calculated, they're not authorized to sell. So they had the 140,000 oysters, and I don't know, they weren't clear as to what they did eventually do, but they faced the issue that they could not sell them, they couldn't reap any income from them. So their natural resources officer, he suggested, and I don't know if this, I went back and I looked at what they were talking about in Tech Memo 3, and I wasn't certain if this was the same, that the most efficient thing to do would be to grow seed in the spring to 1 inch in the fall, overwinter, and sell in the spring. In other words, not grow them to full market size, just grow them enough to basically be able to move them on. And he suggested that avoided concerns about the possibility that older oysters get disease, that they don't get enough food during this second period, or that they don't otherwise survive a second winter, and also cuts down on labor costs, because he said there was a labor-intensive work of managing the shellfish as they plump up, apparently more so than in the seed. So what he suggested to the town is that they basically contract with a seed supplier who would pay the town to grow the seed in the pond for that limited period of time, and then move them on and sell them to the private sector when they were the size that could be sold. He also noted that if they tried to grow them to commercial size, they would take up a lot of space in the pond. And that, of course, relates back to one of the issues that GHD had pointed out about aesthetics and people complaining. Apparently, there were already people complaining about the seed bags and that sort of stuff. So I don't know if they would complain if there were a lot more oysters taking up more space. But, so
Yeah.
that's what I have on Orleans.
Yeah,
Those are oysters when you keep this.
Yeah, these are oysters.
So some places we have oysters, some places we have cohogs.
Yeah.
With the thing you were talking about that was outside between Hemingway, I think it's between Hemingway and Salt Pond. Because I was just kayaking.
generally in that direction, yeah.
Yeah, kind of halfway between the two. Was that, do you know what those were? What those?
My guess is that they were a floating structure about maybe 2.5 feet long and maybe 18 inches wide. And the ones I was closest to, I could see they were made out of a heavy plastic. They were sort of like a pillow. okay?
You could see them from Salt Pond.
Well, I went through.
What, I'm a little confused. What are we talking about
Yeah.
here?
The ones that are being done
Shellfish
in.
grants.
It's a grant.
Oh,
It's in
okay,
East-
okay.
Okay,
I guess I
let me
didn't
say a
know
little
that's
bit more.
very
Yeah,
good.
it's confusing. I've been out there in a kayak.
Yeah.
And I've looked at them. And so it's a floating structure. And to me, that means that it's oysters, and they, so I saw some others. It's possible they are more of a woven cable bag.
That's what I was, thought I was
Yeah,
saying.
that's the ones that are at Lonnie's. They are of a kind of a net fastened together into a bag. So, and my understanding is the oysters grow very well up near the surface. It's a little bit more of a risk if they're lower, and that's why the growers go to a floating bag.
Yeah. Well, that area wasn't very deep, where I saw.
You know? The-
So, but those people are licensed and skilled
They're a
in
commercial grower.
raising them to be healthy adult ones, and the Lonnie's pond thing isn't. That's why they can't be sold, because they don't.
No, because the town doesn't have a license to sell.
Well, they don't have the license because they're not qualified.
Well,
No, I guess they, I don't know.
They could become
I think it's.
qualified perhaps, but.
I
don't
think-
know.
I was in a meeting when that,
I wouldn't say they're not qualified, because we're not in a position to say that. So let's just say the town does not have a license to sell and leave it.
no, the,
But the people who do have licenses are qualified.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good statement. I was in a meeting when that was pointed out. In Massachusetts, for some reason, there is in fact a regulation that says towns cannot raise and sell at least shellfish, if not something else. Apparently, it was something that our grandfathers and got into the rule book, and that's there.
It's probably to protect shellfish. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't want competition from the towns. So,
I have a suggestion.
yeah.
We have a new committee, a shellfish committee, and one of our staff members in conservation is a liaison. So I would suggest that we invite her to the meeting, our meeting, next meeting, and maybe she can explain to us, there is certain acres, number of acres that go out on the list for approved grant holders. There's a process to apply for a piece of land, it's like a community garden out in the ocean type, analogy, for a fisherman to grow oysters or whatever, and maybe we can get specifics on how many acres the town of Eastham has, how many grant holders they have, what it is that they're harvesting, specifics as to what our current capacity is, and if they see, particularly with this group, I'm very happy that this group has started, because I think there's, interest, and I think who better to inform the town of all of the aspects of this than the fishermen themselves.
And I think it's really important to understand the economics of this, as well as the benefits to water quality.
Yeah. Well, if the town is not in the business, I mean, if we were to follow a model, something like what the Orleans Natural Resources Officer is considering, then the town really doesn't have a financial stake.
Well,
They
I mean-
they offer the land, when he said contract, I think what he means is, they put it, in fact, to use the term RFP, put it out for bids, you can have this much land to grow that many and whatever, and.
But they
so
pay
that-
for it, don't they?
No,
It's
but
a
the
rental?
people who respond to the RFP pay the town. So the economic impact is actually
Well,
money
these
for
are
the
for
town.
two different reasons right now,
Yeah.
so what the town of Orleans is involved in is almost like a piloted
Yeah.
research project to use shellfish to mitigate the nutrient load
Yeah.
and remove nutrients from the environment. So that's completely different than propagation of shellfish for financial farming.
Yeah, the
Where do
commercial.
they
no,
intersect?
And
It's-
you would think there could
Right,
be an
but
Okay,
there's-
exception
whoa,
made for
whoa,
that.
whoa, 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 please. What Sears is suggesting is that if the town wants to go forward with aquaculture as a method, that instead of the town investing in buying the oysters, doing the work of keeping the oysters for whatever period of time, that instead they solicit bids from oyster growers to basically, I guess, lease land. This is not a specificity thing, it was just a general comment he made, but I would guess that's the way it would be done. That they would lease land from the town, they would pay the town for the use of the land, but then they would be responsible for the oyster growth and whatever, and for harvesting them and getting whatever money from them. And I suspect that, the town would have some specificity as to how many oysters they could put there and how many, whatever. In other words, the proposal would be shaped to accomplish what the town would accomplish if it was putting the oysters in itself, but they would be looking for somebody else to do it on their dime. So would that work? I don't know, because I don't know enough about the shellfish.
Well, the good thing is with a public-private partnership like they're proposing and they're setting groundwork that we could benefit from.
Right.
And so that's great, and, so as we're a little bit behind them in this process, so we will learn as we move down the road.
Right. Is Shana the person who's staffing the
No, it's
shellfish?
Nicole.
Okay, I guess it's on the website, right?
Yeah, actually, I could add, the Eastham Shellfish folks meet at 6 PM on Thursday this week, the 12th of October. And as it turns out, the Orleans Shellfish folks are meeting at 7 PM tonight down in Orleans Town Hall. And they're the two bodies managing the thinking.
Okay. Let's move on to the discussion of revisions to the committee webpage. Mary Lou?
Did we cover 5?
Say that again?
Did we cover number 5 on the agenda?
No, I'm going to skip that for now.
Okay, very good. You also need to cut me off when you want to
Okay.
get to other things.
Okay, I think what we discussed was starting first with trying to elicit some recommendations, thoughts about what the purposes of the webpage should be. So-
Well, yeah, going back to the last meeting, our discussion of the charge to the committee was really important. And several things occurred to me as I thought about that discussion. One is, part of our charge is to maintain, do they call it a working library? Anyway, a set of resources. What struck me, especially during the discussion of the unidentifiable postings on our website, was that Jane recognized those almost immediately as a report that you were familiar with. Is that a fair statement? But what that led me to think about was the fact that a lot of the things that are relevant to water quality and therefore to this committee are already on the health department's website. How do we balance out our responsibility to have a set of resources for the public without duplicating what Jane's doing, especially since she has resources to do it and we don't? So that's going to be an interesting discussion, is how we work that out. I have no answers to that. I only have the question that occurred to me. The other thing that I thought of as we've talked about a number of things is that the web has changed marketing irrevocably. It used to be that we just tried to talk people into buying things. That is very much out of fashion in marketing these days. We are now providing content to people, which is what Jane's site is doing so well. However, it's not a build it and they will come situation. It just doesn't work that way. No matter how good your website is, no matter how wonderful your content is, people have to know about it in order to come and experiencing it. And in order for people to know about it, you have to get your content out somewhere. Taking reports and Charles and all sorts of wonderful things to the Windmill Weekend is a way of doing that, but it's a very small scale. We need to think as, I started to say as time goes on, but we need to think quickly about how, when a new website with all sorts of wonderful features is available to us, how are we going to get people to come and to consume the content? It's, there are ways of doing it, but it's not automatic. It takes work and it takes some effort. Just about as much effort, as a matter of fact, as it does to build and to maintain the website itself, maybe even more. So think about, it's not build it and they will come. As I asked two questions that I would hope we could get pretty far with today. Who do you see as our target audiences, and I'm intentionally using the plural there, for the Water Management Committee webpage? And the second is related to that, then what specific objectives are we trying to accomplish for this committee and for the town of Eastham in general? So who do we expect to be interested to coming and reading our webpage now and in the future? I have a question to you. Do any of you think about our webpage as a resource?
Yes,
You go there to find things that you
Yeah.
need for the committee.
I've been there.
We should all be thinking that.
Yeah, yeah,
It should be.
but it should be, but the only reason, the only way it can be a resource is if in fact it is a better organized and better webpage than it is now. I mean, I've struggled with it enough that I now have a sense of where I have to go to find what I want to find.
But remember,
But I had
this-
to struggle
Yeah,
first.
this is how I got myself into this.
Yeah.
As a newbie, trying to do my research and get up to speed before I came to a first meeting, I was just lost when I hit the webpage. And so if I, who have already made a commitment to this, felt lost and did not feel helped by the webpage, what about the ordinary citizens of Eastham? How do they react when they come? So is the general population of Eastham one of our target audiences?
I would say the general population, but with the recognition that there are only selected people who are gonna, I don't mean, I shouldn't say selected, that's the wrong term. There are only certain people who have sufficient interest in the subject that they are gonna go. I am surprised at the people that have spoken to me about watching the committee meetings. So
Oh.
there are some people out there who obviously have an interest in this. I don't think it's just that they're starved for anything else to watch. They watch these committee meetings. So I would assume a person like that might well, which is why I've tried to follow this process when we're referring to materials that are available on the website or something like that, to follow the process of showing where it is so that people can go and look for themselves. So I think there are people, you know, or people who get interested in a particular subject. For example, when we were doing the municipal water system, you know, talking about it and that sort of stuff, I think it would have been helpful if we'd had a better website than we did, in terms of having more information publicly available to set aside and remove some of the false information that was floating around. It was hard to keep tracking it down, but, so I see it as that sort of a thing also, where you can have the solid facts behind something and just have them available and be able to refer people to them.
And let me leave just another question hanging on that subject, because we had a little bit of discussion about those technical reports at the last meeting. Some of it a bit facetious, that most of the people who are ever going to read those technical reports were sitting around this table. How much of a responsibility do we have to translate the hard facts into more palatable material for content for public consumption? Because, I guess two questions go with that. The other one is, so who are these people who are interested in water? Are they interested because of their academic and professional background? Are they just interested citizens? Who do we think they are, and which then leads us to the level at which they're interested in consuming information?
I think both of those categories are apropos, but I also think some people will be interested as these particular matters become economic factors in their lives. I mean, probably what stimulated the highest degree of interest in the municipal water system was when it began to get concrete and people could see what the costs of the systems would be, and then information was available about how does that cost break down for me.
That's right.
Yeah, we all do know that's a motivator. Once somebody says
When it affects us.
it's going to be X dollars for you and Y dollars for you, you decide you want to find out more about what it is. Yeah,
But even discussions of future intent or projects can stimulate interest. It doesn't have
Right.
to be directly immediate
No,
financial
it just- a
concern.
general-
It could
yeah.
be, wow, East Ham's starting to think about this. I
Right.
better get educated.
Yeah.
Right.
In fact, I'd like to see, I don't know whether there's other reports that go along with Jeff's report on the alternative septic systems, but to me, that was just a great example of something I didn't know anything about, that he was able to put in layman's terms that wouldn't take much to convert into a nice piece of content on the website that people could understand and relate to. So.
okay. All right, so what I've gotten so far is a little bit about target audience. It could, obviously, the committee members, members of the public, who have
Are we
particular
interested in
interests.
schools or other kinds of institutions using this material?
I guess I don't, obviously, I don't think it's schools. We're not talking elementary. I don't even know if we're talking high schools. I have no idea where high school students are with now, or at now with respect to scientific type data, so. But they might, I guess, who knows if, I have no idea what the coursework is at Norset Regional High School, whether they might have something that's at all relevant to this subject. Otherwise, in terms of schools, I mean, other people should speak up, too. It's not just
Well, I
my
was going
thoughts.
to ask if anybody had the knowledge of public schools to even answer that question.
Yeah, I don't.
Adequately. They use a lot of stuff from a lot of places, but in a much more rigid curriculum than I, as a college person, am used to. So all I know is that everybody loves videos these days. Just keep that in mind. Videos are very usable. From what I've heard and what I've talked to, please, the rest of you, the school systems don't seem to have much demand for this kind of stuff. What about your food-related items? Does that videos, any of the content, get any?
In terms of, the town's relationship with Nauset High School, the elementary school, Mass Maritime Academy, Cape Cod Community College, we really don't set up partnerships. That's not, we don't have positions of that type in this government structure. That's not to say that we don't work with all of those organizations on request. I had a student that did a report from Mass Maritime Academy on emergency planning. Part of our role in the health department is we get money from Homeland Security. We have a coalition, and we have, believe it or not, emergency management plans that are integrated between fire, police, and health department. So this student came down and he looked at our operation plan, talked to each professional person in the various departments. So, you know, anytime a student expresses interest and wants to do a project, or a teacher, you know, we're happy to work with them. We don't have, as part of our job responsibilities.
You're saying they're a secondary target, right? If they ask, we'll be glad to try to help, but we're not creating things especially for them?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate, you know, how you're trying to take something as a blank slate. And I think you had said this at one of the very first meetings you attended, that sometimes it's just easier to just start, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
You know, start from there as opposed to trying to go back in and fix this and fix that. Maybe look and think of the content in a very broad approach, and then you can build behind that. And you're right that a website's only good if you keep it updated. And that's a very hard thing to force yourself to do all the time. It really is. But, I mean, we have a real effort on the health, environmental side with, you know, my health department to keep everything current, because I have a responsibility that these documents it's mandatory that they're made public. And so I've just found, if I stay organized and I stay on top of this, it just makes my life and so
Yeah.
many other people's lives so much easier, including our accountants that need to look back on money spent for these issues and whatnot, and they have to do like forensic backtracking, and they need to see the reports that relate to the work product. So I think that if you did the same thing on your side, you know, we're gonna have wells in this town for decades into the, so that's an important well water
Yeah,
testing.
I'd like, though,
you know.
before we get to content,
kind of
to
thing.
finish up on these specific questions of what is our objective, rather than trying to identify specific content, because I think the content that makes sense will sort of flow out of what is it we're trying to accomplish with this website. And I'm not hearing a lot about, what do you think it should serve
Well,
or
Adele,
do?
next to sharks, I think the newspapers cover wastewater
Yeah,
as much. Now, our website is another level that goes beyond what newspaper reporting is. If people are concerned about the water, they get that initially from the newspaper. Now, they want to study something in depth, they will go to our website. I would think that's the natural transition.
yeah, but that covers, like what we said before, that the target audiences would be community members, members of the public, and I guess
Well,
I would
I'm
add sort of
thinking, though, that through
researchers.
the newspaper, the average person that might not be particularly interested in our website is now going to become interested in our website.
Yeah.
If you read the newspapers, wastewater is a big issue.
Okay, should we add researchers to the target audience? I mean, I could
So
see
I think the
researchers,
common-
you want to look at the history of something, you know, people are always writing papers about something. I have at times wondered why, but, so I would think that some people might, in a way, I guess, it could be an interesting case study, for example, the development of the municipal water system here, what the town had to go through to finally get it going and that sort of thing. So why don't we add researchers, which means something about stuff that we might retain in an archive format. I should add, by the way, actually, because I realized the first time we met, at that same meeting, the August 21st meeting of the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator was reporting to them on the status of the development of the new website. And at that point, she said she expected the new website would be available in about 2 to 3 months from that time. So we're now already a month, I guess a month and a half from that. So maybe that means a month and a half, we'll see a new website.
For our committee.
No, the town is redoing, it's
okay.
coming up with a whole new website. It's
Okay.
going to be similar to what a lot of the towns already have. They're using the same sort of, I don't know if you call him contractor, but whatever he is to do it. Others, it's not exactly on the topic, but I noted it down anyway as we went. One of the other things that I think we would be striving to do is, once we decide what we want there, to identify material as we go. As something is prepared by the committee, that one of the questions that we ask at that time is, do we want this on the website? And just sort of try to keep that in mind, to just constantly say, do we want this on the website?
And if I understand what this new website is going to be, we're going to have the control over what goes up on our page.
Yes, yeah, I think that's part of the purpose that, in the new website, that it'll be much more user-friendly in terms of posting material and
We'll
that
be
sort of stuff.
responsible. We can't blame
That's
IT
true.
for not
That's
having done
true,
it.
it'll be us. And this is more just a vague idea, and maybe this fits into the project thing at some point down the line, but I don't want to lose it. I wonder if, with all that's going on about the wastewater issues in the estuaries on the Cape, whether anyone has given any thought to develop some sort of coursework at the high school level or at the community college level that would get students interested in this
How about
subject.
The Wellfleet Open, whatever do they
Open
call it?
University.
Yeah, that's open, yeah, but
Interesting stuff going
well,
on
and that
there.
might be, something could be adapted, but I was thinking more catching students and sort of getting them interested in the issues.
There
when-
already are.
There
At
are
Cape Cod-
courses like
yeah,
that?
At Cape Cod Community College, they have certificate programs in environmental science, not particularly environmental science, but different, criteria.
And they've picked up this, what's going on with the estuaries, and that's what I was particularly interested in, that there's a whole issue right here on the Cape that is a major environmental issue, and it's not unique to the Cape, but certainly the fact that, the whole Cape is involved as opposed to a more limited area, I would think would be an attractive subject, in and of itself, and getting people into it, and how did it happen, and what can we do? Yes, we have this remediation now, but what can we do in the future to stop it recurring in that? So I don't know if there's anything there, and I don't even know who we would talk to about it, but it's a thought to sort of like tumble around, see if something comes out of it.
What Jeff said suggests to me that we'd like for the webpage to be a resource, certainly for us as the committee, the town in general, I think. And when we have this wonderful new webpage that we're keeping up beautifully, and it has all this great content, should we not get journalists interested in considering us as a resource, which might be the back door to the school also? Other people read newspapers. It's hard to get journalists interested these days. They are deluged with emails and press releases and all sorts of other stuff. But it would be really, maybe we'll want to do it as the town, with a group of very interested and active committees who are producing this good stuff. But can we get the journalists looking at our site as they write articles?
I think if we have topical information, yes, but that's it. I mean, it has to be something topical that they can transfer into a news report.
But they also have to know to look
Yeah, oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
our site for that.
Well, I don't, okay, my experience anyway with journalists is they won't look unless they're doing some sort of an investigation with the drug. But so that basically, if we think that there's something that we've developed that might be newsworthy in some way, it's incumbent upon us to reach out to the journalists. And we do know.
We just have to
or-
realize there's a lot of competition in doing that
Well,
these
yeah,
days.
but there are a couple of people who are very, as long as it's really something solid, pretty easy to reach and are
Once
willing,
you
are
learn
willing
who
to
the
do
journalists
something.
are, who are writing these
Yeah,
articles,
well-
then you know who's more likely to be
Yeah.
interested in
Well,
the
I think-
content.
I know some from the work I've done in the past, and I think between us, we probably know who the relevant people are. Okay, so what are our objectives? What do we want to accomplish by this website?
I think as a minimum, we want to make sure that any document that on the water resources is up on the website really soon after it's delivered as part of a deliverable for the contract that's buying it. To me, that's the bottom, the minimum. Now, in
Currency, I'm trying to think of the word. We want things to be up to date. We want people to be able to find
Okay, but
current
we're
items.
talking about documents, you said water resources, you mean water resources or water quality?
That to me is another discussion. But just looking back, say, over the last 10 years of the different documents that Jane has been part of purchasing for the town, and I say for the town, but for the public. Basically, the public bought the document, their agent was the town agent that did it for them. Okay, so now, there have been times when folks in the Water Management Committee have written a document which what I would say is commercial grade. The subject is well stated, but that's atypical. Normally, what we're doing is discussing what's in the documents that have come to us from the consultants to such that we understand them. Should someone in the public come and ask for help to the committee,
Well, I would disagree with that, Charles. I think
All
some
right.
of the things we've produced have gone beyond simply reportage on what consultants have given us. For example, what we produced during the municipal water system, I mean, the Q&A on that was all material that we put together ourselves.
Exactly.
And if I search my brain, I suspect I can get some others like that. But.
We've done that.
And to the extent, what you're talking about, like the things that Jane is contracted for, as she's mentioned, she's pretty diligent about getting those on her webpage, on the Health Department webpage. I think it's still useful to have them identified on our page and then linked to the Health Department. Because
Two
people
places.
not knowing where to go might well think water and come to our page. They might not, they might not immediately make that link that it's Health Department. So that, I think, is clearly, we would want our page to identify all of those items and then with links where they're there. And the other thing, I think clearly, anything that this committee that has produced that is worth retaining and provide some information that is useful to people and is current. Go ahead.
Are you the person who will maintain this website?
I haven't volunteered yet.
Okay, because, a lot of websites have old, outdated stuff that never goes away.
Okay,
And-
that's a different subject.
Well,
Let's
it is,
stick
it
to
is,
one
but-
at a time.
Okay, I'm saying the
Okay?
quality of it has to be maintained.
Right,
Okay,
okay.
I'll be a little less facetious. The kind of software you were using, the approach that most towns and schools is now the name of the company we're using. I've forgotten it all. They've changed their name since they did our current website, but it's the same company under a different name. But in any event, the rule is you have to have governance of some sort. There have to be some rules about what you need to do. But there have to be, there almost invariably are, as I've looked at a lot of these websites, there are editors. If I volunteered to be the editor for this page, then it would be my responsibility to, at the request of the committee, is perhaps the correct way to put it, to put up the current material, to archive things on certain rules, or to say to say to the committee, this is getting too crowded, is it okay if I archive? But I would be the person who was responsible, I would be the operations manager virtually for this page. But then there would be another level of editors where several pages that were related would also either have an editor or an editorial committee, and they'd work together, which I think is certainly how we'd want to work with the health page. So to make this work, because we are all responsible for our individual pages, there simply has to be some sort of governance, even though it's content governance. It's not IT stuff. It's deciding together who does what, when, and how with the content. That's what makes these sites really good, if they're well-run.
Okay, and on the outdated thing, as Mary Lou just used the words archive, what little we know about the website, we have been told that there will be an archive. So you can retain documents, they will be available, but they won't be, I guess, on the face page or whatever those things are. But that, so that to the extent someone did want to research, and I discussed this particular thing with Sandy, because, you know, we have all these pond reports there, and obviously some of them are pretty old, and there are different levels of completeness and numbers of ponds and all the rest of it. But she felt very strongly, and this was based also on Henry Lind, that you never throw them away, but obviously an answer to that is, okay, they can all go into the
Just
archive.
Put them deeper in the
And-
closet.
Yeah, and so anybody who really wants them can go and find them there. And maybe, I'm not, since I got into this and I'm violating my own process, I'm not high on keeping the pond reports on our page unless we can provide some, I mean, keeping it on the face page as opposed to the archives, unless we can provide some meaningful description of what these reports indicate. I think otherwise, they're valuable for scientists who can read those strings of numbers and know what they are. I guess we have one analysis that Liz did at some point. I mean, that's useful, and also the report she did to the Board of Selectmen about deterioration and that sort of stuff. I mean, that I see somebody, yeah, it's not the easiest thing to read, but if you're, you know, reasonably literate and you're really interested and you take the time, you can read it and you can understand it. And so those are I would make that distinction in terms of content, but that's probably
Well,
ahead of where we are
I'd
now.
even and I know this is an oversimplification, but try it as an idea, that the health department keeps pretty much everything, but the health department keeps the technical information. We try very hard to disseminate the content that is palatable to the thoughtful layperson, and that's our primary role, with the backup of all this wonderful historical, technical, everything that's going to be on the health site. I think that oversimplifies it, but it's kind of a picture
Well,
to start with.
It is, but I think we're still going to have to deal, and maybe not the committee as a whole, maybe you and I, and then coming back with a proposal, we're going to have to deal with particular items.
Oh, yeah.
And say, this goes away, this goes in the archives, or.
Oh, I've
yeah,
got an
but
easy
that's
decision rule.
technical,
Jane
yeah.
already has it.
Well, but as I said, then we would say, if we think somebody might come to our site looking for it, we still have to put some identification on it and a link.
Yeah. And
Go over
that's going to
there.
be the fun
Yeah,
part.
yeah. And then that will be the job of somebody as the years go on to make certain the links don't get broken, but I'm not going to worry about that one.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
When we put, say when the town buys a report, from a consultant, comes in, and we put it on the webpage. Is that going to be a searchable thing? That, in other words, if somebody was looking for generally that subject area, our report would pop up?
We don't have enough information about the website yet to know whether or not they're gonna have a search engine. You can have one, and I was always surprised that our current one didn't. Apparently, you can buy it from Google. I mean, Google will run the search engine on your website. Now, do you want that? I don't know. There may be pros and cons of that. But I don't know, actually, if they're gonna have a search engine.
I think you can assume that there will be menus of some kind. They won't look like the current website, but there will be some listings of categories of
Yeah,
content.
Yeah. I think what Charles was talking about, though, is, you go on the internet and you put in XYZ, and then they give you a list where XYZ appears. And that would be very useful. I know at times I have, not necessarily about our stuff, but looking for other stuff on the website. I've been puzzled as to where to find it, and the lack of any keyword search means you gotta go hunting around.
Or you go to Google, which is much better at finding not only what's on our websites, but it's better at finding what's on a lot of big corporate websites
Yeah, but it
than the
doesn't-
search on the corporate is. And that is,
Doesn't
it's
always
another
work.
story,
I
but
could
there's-
assure you,
no,
I've tried.
There's a variety of ways to do
Yeah.
this.
No, but what I'm saying is I've tried that, putting the term into Google generally and indicating it's Eastham, and I don't get it. So, it's like everything else, there's no perfect answer. But I think a search engine for our particular website would be useful, whether they have it or not, I don't know. We'll find out at the great
We'll know.
unveiling.
What else
I
do you
think
want
we're-
do you want to get accomplished? I've got things to write up here on target audiences and objectives. I don't think we have a final answer on anything, but I've got discussion material. Is that good enough for today?
I think so. I think so. And the time being what it is, I don't think I'm going to try to start technical memorandum number 3. I hope to do it quickly, but I don't think I could do it that quickly. So, for any of you who had trouble reading it, you have another opportunity to read it and garner much more the second time around. And we'll also be doing the simplification and the various, I mentioned all the watershed reports, so you'd be aware of them. Actually, the only watershed report that I would intend to discuss at all in any substance, other than just saying low, moderate, high, is the Nauset Harbor one, which is the one obviously of immediate concern to us. And I would hope that next time, maybe we can also do 4 as well as 3. And then we'll be finished with all of them. At least not finished, but we will have been through all of them, and we'll have a background for whatever further we're going to do on these things.
Could I ask a question about
Sure.
the content there? In several instances, there's discussion of bookended samplings, or I've forgotten what book.
Scenarios.
What is this?
You don't want my answer to that question. I'll let Jane answer it.
In any field, the jargon, you get a lot of jargon. And these scenarios or examples are, the commission, rather than just going down the tried and true approach for wastewater treatment, which is sewering, bringing it to a sewer treatment plant, and then the effluents disposed of, they tried to take a broad view on all kinds of options that might be out there. And so bookends are a two-sided approach, looking at the traditional civil engineering methodology, and then looking at the creative, multifaceted approach, which might include aquaculture, fertilizer reduction, all of the little puzzle pieces. So the problem was evaluated in each one of the estuaries on those 2 different planes, the
I
traditional
think
and the
your question might
non-traditional.
have been, why do they use the word bookends?
Well, I just didn't understand what they were doing when
No,
the word
that's-
bookends was
it's-
used. I mean, that's a very good
As Jane
explanation.
said,
Now I
it's
understand,
jargon.
and it makes
Why,
sense.
where they, I've never seen the term used before in anything. So I guess it may be a term of growing use in
Yeah,
scientific material.
And, you know, we put together a three-page full brochure to try to do a synopsis on this technical work that was done by the consultants, which is a really, really hard thing to do, and we still haven't agreed upon the outcome, but,
Is this the newsletter you're
yeah,
talking
the
about?
newsletter, which
It's
is always
still-
the hardest
Still a
thing.
warning?
It's still, yeah, I mean, it's in its form. I'm almost honestly ready to say,
Just do it.
let's move on. But it's a very tricky thing to do from a marketing standpoint, to communicate your message clearly. And I thought it was really, really a good point Martin McDonald made when in this description, this little brochure, Martin says, stop using the word scenario. Let's not even use that anymore. It's just so.
It's plan, a plan, you
Yeah,
know?
it's just,
But I
where did that
understand
come
the
from?
scenario. I didn't understand.
Yeah, but
movie.
the
But it-
general public doesn't. They
But
think
it
that's what
turns
you do for
people off
movies.
sometimes
Does
when
it
you
really?
get into the jargon of it all. And unless you're in the know about what the abbreviations and acronyms mean, you're like left out of the conversation.
And it's a turnoff. I
Yeah,
mean, if
it
you
is.
read through two sentences and you don't understand the two sentences, you're not going any further.
Right.
But if you write a scenario like it's a story of what might be,
But you've been in education, so that is something that is, you know, a part of your world, but on just the man on the street, the person standing at the deli counter line that might read 4 sentences of this pamphlet, they're
you
lost.
have the wrong idea.
Because the words just are,
Yeah, what are they talking about? Who has scenarios?
right.
So, okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody wants to go home.
It's beautiful outside.
You moved?